Hey everyone, and welcome to the Step Over podcast. My name is Josh Lemoyne. Thanks for joining for a little bit to chat everything Ottawa soccer. We've got a fantastic guest today. Kwame Telemaque is going to be joining in a little bit. He's the technical director for West Ottawa Soccer. So we're going to get to know him a little bit and chat about West Ottawa. I think you're really going to enjoy that. But first, a few updates on some local players. So first, you might have seen the women's national team roster announced for the upcoming Arnold Clark Cup, which I believe you'll be able to watch on TSN, so good on them for picking that up. Obviously, Ottawa's Vanessa Gilles was named to the roster, so she's expected to be a starter. Now, there's three new players who have not been named to teams before who will be making an appearance. Devin Kerr, Mary Yasmin Alidou, and Tanya Boychuk, who is from the University of Memphis. Now, on a previous episode, we've talked to Clarissa Larissi, who is a former teammate at the University of Memphis of Boychuk's. So obviously really cool to see a new face. And of course, I'm a big fan of Clarissa's. She's been on the show. She's from Ottawa. And she's been tearing it up in Scotland for Celtic FC. And I was thinking at one point, does maybe Larissi get a call up to the national team? So I asked that question on Twitter to Alexandra Gangué-Ruzik. And I apologize if I don't pronounce your name right, Alexandra. But he's one of the best soccer journalists in Canada. Does a really great job of covering both the men's and women's sides. And basically what he was saying is players like Larissi or, someone like Chandra Davidson, who plays with Sporting CP, the Scottish League and the Portuguese League. On the men's sides, those are quite well-regarded leagues. But on the women's side, they're still coming up. They don't quite have that standing. Now a player like Chloe Lacasse, who also plays in Portugal, has become a bit of a mainstay on the national side now, but she scores at an unbelievable pace in Portugal, and she needed to do that, to earn that call up. So in all likelihood, a player like Chandra Davidson or Clarissa Larissi will probably need to take another step up into a more highly regarded league, before they get that call. But Clarissa's been doing really well with Celtic. And she's not been there a long time. Less than a year ago, she was still with Memphis, but since then she's won national championships in Iceland and in Scotland. So she's done quite well in the last year. And who knows, maybe another move might be in her future in the next year or two. I also wanted to touch on a player from the University of Ottawa, Sadie Sider-Echenberg, was invited to Racing Louisville's preseason training camp. Now Sadie was a rookie for the GGs this past season. She comes out of the Futuro Academy in Ottawa. And I was tweeting a bit with wsoccer.ca, which is a fantastic Twitter account to follow, by the way, for all things women's soccer. And Sadie might be the first player in U Sports history who is not already part of the women's national team program to get invited to an NWSL preseason training camp. So it's a huge accomplishment for Sadie, and really speaks to the quality of the OUA and U Sports and the GG's program specifically. So I really want to check up on Sadie's experience in the next week or two. So we'll see about that. And also want to give a shout out to Antoine Coupland. Of course, you know Antoine from his days playing with the Fury. He's played the last two seasons with Atletico Ottawa. Now he spent the winter trialing with some teams across Europe, kind of betting on himself. And it looks to have paid off because he's now been signed to his first full pro contract in the Croatian First Division with HNK Rijeka. Yeah, I looked up how to say it. Now, like Croatia, it's not a top league, but he'll be playing against the likes of Hajduk Split and Dinamo Zagreb. Two quite well-known teams. Rijeka's been doing very well. I think they're in third in that top division, and in the last few years, they've qualified for the UEFA Champions League, Europa League, Europa Conference League. So he's going to get exposure to a lot more European eyes, which was the goal. Now, people who have played with Antoine, they just say that he's such an unbelievable technical player, and that's probably going to be appreciated more in a European league. He's probably going to get a chance to shine a little brighter over there. So I'm really excited to see what Antoine does on his new European adventure. So good luck, Antoine. Now, as I said, got a really fantastic guest coming up right now in Kwame Telemaque. You're really going to like it. So here's my chat with Kwame. He played college in the States and was an NCAA All-American He played professionally in Belgium, Portugal, and Ireland. He's coached St. Anthony's men's premier team to a provincial and national championship. And on top of being an assistant coach for the Carleton Ravens, he also holds the title of technical director for the West Ottawa Soccer Club. He is Kwame Telemaque. Kwame, welcome. It's really great to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Thanks so much for having me.
So I have a ton of questions for you. I spent last night thinking like, okay, I need to keep this to a tight interview, so I can't ask you everything I want to. But the first thing I want to ask is, West Ottawa was in the news recently. We just came out of some kind of lockdown situation, but you made the best of it. And after a snowstorm, you had people outside clearing off fields. What was that like?
It was, it was kind of one of those things where you had an idea in your head, and I was kind of thinking back to my old childhood back in way back in the day. And I'm like, used to just clear things and just figure it out and play in these bad conditions, right? So I said, I wonder if people would take to that idea. And lo and behold, all of a sudden you got like 50 to 60 volunteers shoveling off a field. Kids are out there just having a blast. We had the hot chocolates and coffees going, and we cleared off the field about 2/3 of an 11v11 pitch, and we got some kickabouts going in the middle of January. So it's pretty cool.
Right on. So, like, is that something that you've done before with this field, or was this kind of born out of necessity?
No, we've never done it before, and it was just kind of one of those things where just, I'm sure everybody was in the same boat, and like yourself, we're just kind of depressed with another set of restrictions, another kind of lockdown where we couldn't do anything again, right? So we're like, well, let's see what we can do. And I knew restrictions were fine for outdoor activity, and I saw lots of kids at the outdoor rinks and people skiing and doing all sorts of winter activities. I'm like, well, let's see if we can do soccer outdoors. We got a field for a field. Let's give it a go and see what happens.
So, was there any inspiration from? We saw the men's national team play at the Ice Teca over in Edmonton. Did you draw any inspiration from that?
1,000% I did. I mean, as we saw, the boys playing in Edmonton, like in -12 or whatever it was, and on crazy conditions, we're like, well, I mean, maybe we start, raising the next generation in that same mold, right? So it was the perfect inspiration, and it was great to get it done.
That's fantastic. So how did the kids like it?
You know what? The kids, actually, I thought it would have been maybe a little too chilly for them. I thought maybe they would have been like, isn't quite like the thing. I think they were just so happy to be outside with their friends, kicking the ball around. There wasn't really any instruction. Like, we weren't coaching per se. It was just letting them out there, play little 5v5 games and have some fun with it. So they seemed to have a blast.
So I do have I think it's probably a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyways, because someone has to. So you're the technical director for West Ottawa. What is a technical director?
I'm still trying to figure that out myself. It's kind of almost like you're wearing a lot of hats at once. You're helping basically mold the technical direction of the club in regards to, where do we see our identity as on the field, off the field, what we want to try to bring to our players in terms of a brand of the game. So kind of delivering those messages through your coaching staff, through the full-time staff as well. So, and handling a lot of behind the scenes administration with Canada Soccer, Ontario Soccer, and that sort of thing.
Okay, cool. I like to ask the stupid questions so the good listener doesn't have to, and they can feel smarter. So thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Now, something I try and ask basically like everyone that I have on is just like how they first got introduced to soccer. Like, how did you first get into it?
You know what? I was the first one in my family born in Canada. Like my parents are from the country of Trinidad and Tobago, so from the Caribbean. And soccer is just everything down there in the West Indies and the Caribbean. So, when they came to Canada, obviously it was in their blood, and I started playing soccer at a young age. I'm originally from Montreal, and started playing in the local, inner city soccer, house league soccer when I was 3-4 years old, and I just grew up loving the game. And it's the one game that I've just continuously played my whole life, even though I've done a lot of different activities, basketball and martial arts. Soccer's always just been a staple, and I just fell in love with the game.
Like, did you have like a favorite team growing up?
Yeah, you know what? Well, I think in my era, I was like, I mean, maybe I got this from my dad. It was like you lived and breathed Pele, so everything was Brazil at the time. I'd read a whole bunch of Pele books and watch that movie with Pele and Sylvester Stallone. Like, you got to look it up. It's like old school, and it's kind of like one of those things it was embedded in me. It was kind of like Brazil a little bit. And as I kind of grew into my own little, early teens, adolescent type of age, I started to really like France, like the France national team. I started to really look into them, and I still support that group. And now, obviously, with Canada, being the force that it is, it's obviously as a Canadian, you have to go with Canada as well. But my team as a club team would be Arsenal probably. So I hate to say that out loud right now, but
yeah. Yeah, I think that's what most Arsenal fans kind of have to. That's kind of their take right now.
Yeah.
Like when you were growing up, you mentioned Pele. But my understanding is that you were more of a defenseman when you played. Like, was there a player that you tried to emulate?
You know what? It was funny. Like I said, I grew up from a really old school time, and the videos and stuff that I got, were from like the Beckenbauer days, like that Germany team in the 70s, and players like that. I grew up watching Rijkaard and Desailly, those kind of center back types that were just dominant and decent on the ball as well. I think when I was a player, I was a bit more of a ball playing type center back, which is maybe a little bit different. I think it's more of a modern game now, but back then it wasn't quite so. So I kind of was a bit of a hybrid center back, either a center mid or a center back, depending on the formation and the team. But I think I would have said those were kind of my inspirations growing up for sure.
Okay. And so you said that you were born in Montreal. At what point did you make your way to Ottawa?
My first time in Ottawa was with a professional team at the time called the Ottawa Wizards. They were around in the 2000 to 2003. So that was my first time ever coming to Ottawa, and I played with them for 2 seasons, the first 2 seasons of the franchise. And I'll be honest with you, as a Montrealer, you're kind of like, well, Ottawa. Why would I leave Montreal to go to Ottawa? Because Montreal is a bit more of a party town atmosphere. But when I came here, I really fell in love with the place. Just with the people, with the area, with I saw so much of a bright future for the place, for the city. It was quite a smaller town back, 20 years ago, whatever it was. It's just blossomed to a bit more of a metropolitan now, even though it still kind of holds that small town feel. And I like the proximity of Montreal, Toronto. You can kind of almost get anywhere being in Ottawa. So it's been great being here. And so that was my first stint here. And then when I kind of left and continued playing in different areas. And when I came back and I started coaching, there's only one place I thought of, which was coming back to Ottawa.
Like, why was Ottawa the one place that you considered for that?
It felt like a place with so much potential. At the time there was obviously some really great coaches in the area, and I just wanted to kind of learn from some of those guys and kind of bring my own flair to the Ottawa scene. It was just almost like a blank canvas, so to speak. So it was really nice to kind of be a part of that landscape.
Okay. Are there any are there any coaches you want to name as particular influences on you?
Yeah, I mean, when I first came, I think Klaus Lindenberger, who's from the Almont area, he was a coach. He was our head coach of the Wizards, as well as Boris. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name because it's it's a tough one. But he was the first coach at the Wizards, and just recently retired as the technical director at the Hotspurs. And these are guys that kind of molded the area. Tryon Mateus, Tony Harrison, Roy Hillier. So these are guys that are pretty much legendary with youth soccer in the area, and guys I kind of started to get myself around to learn from them, to kind of get a bit of mentorship, if you want to call it that, and just kind of learn the ropes.
Okay. So you had a pretty interesting career. So you first played university ball in the States, and then professionally abroad. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about your experiences, first moving to the States and then to Europe.
Yeah, well, actually, it's a little bit reverse. I actually went from going to Europe first. So I started off. I went to Europe first. I was in Belgium and Portugal for a stint with Ghent and with Maritimo.
Okay.
So I was there for quite a bit, for a little bit, and then I came back home And as I was coming home, I got a scholarship offer to go to the U.S. At the time, the school was an NAIA school, so it didn't really. With NAIA schools, you could have basically played professionally a day ago and still got a full scholarship compared to the NCAA rules. So it worked out great for me. And as it became NAIA and transitioned to NCAA too, in my time there. But it was interesting because it was a different time back then. Social media wasn't a thing. Facebook and all stuff did not exist. You're talking about the late 90s, early 2000s. It was a struggle because, back then when you went abroad, it's like, well, Canada, all they do is ice hockey. Like, what are you coming over here to play soccer for? So it was interesting. There was a lot of, I really, I was a fairly good player at the time being here in Canada, but when you went over there, you're just a dime a dozen. So you really have to go up there and prove yourself and that next level and see what you can do. But it was an experience that I'll never forget. And to be honest with you, kind of what molded me into the person I am today, right? So it was a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah. So like, how old were you then when you went over there?
I was just 17 turning 18 when I first went over and to Europe. And then when I came back to the US, I was 19. So I got my scholarship. I was 19. I was at the university for a couple of years. We had a great, it was a small school. It was like a 4,000 person college just outside of New York City in New Jersey called Felician College, Felician University now. And we had a great run. We had a great bunch of players on that team from all over the world, from Ireland, Ecuador, Colombia, Canada as well, obviously, the US. And we had a great run. We went to nationals. For such a small school, it was amazing achievement. It's the last time the team went to nationals was that year. So it was it's one of those special runs, and it was great.
Fantastic. So you've been with West Ottawa for a while now. So last year, the club's former technical director, Christina Kiss, she left to take a job with Canada Soccer. So you were named the acting director, and then 2 months later, you were made the permanent technical director. What was the hiring process like, and like how did you sell yourself as the guy to be in charge, to like lead the club?
Yeah, it was an interesting process, as you said. Christina, got a fantastic opportunity with Canada Soccer, and to be honest with you, it was tough for me to take because I learned so much from Christina. She was a fantastic PD and a fantastic person to work with, work for. It was obviously a lot of big shoes to fill. It's a tough role to consider. And, for me, it was more about continuing some of the things that we started to implement and kind of obviously bring my own taste and flair to the position. I was fortunate enough to receive the acting role as kind of being the senior guy on staff at the time. And it was a tough one because we were going into, I don't know if it was our second or third lockdown at the time, coming out of it, trying to get a season put together in a matter of like a week to kind of get a summer of some kind in 2021. It really, at some points, I'm like, man, did I just kind of get in over my head a little bit? But, I got through it and, luckily without not too many issues. And from there, the position then went, basically it was posted to everyone, anyone that can apply. And there was over 90 people that applied worldwide for the position. I think the one thing that probably, helped me in getting the position is just knowing the environment, being in Ottawa. I think, I've done well to kind of have the respect of people in the area and in the province and hopefully in the country as well. And being a part of the culture of the club for such a while, I think helped me with the process. And, just being myself, just being honest and open and, saying, hey, listen, I have a vision. I'm probably going to make mistakes along the way, but I'll definitely learn from them and continue to press on just like you would in a 90-minute game. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, what have been some things that you've learned so far on the job?
To have some thick skin. To have some thick skin. There's going to be moments when you may say things or do things that people may not like or enjoy, but they have to be said. If you're the senior figure and the person that kind of, makes decisions and has to answer for them. And some people may not enjoy that, but I think it's important to have thick skin and be honest and be open. That's some of the biggest values I've learned so far.
So there's there's clubs across the city, but like every club runs a little differently or has like a different vibe. So besides like obviously the geographic area that West Ottawa, like how would you define West Ottawa Soccer Club or like kind of what it strives for?
I would describe West Ottawa Soccer a place where players can come and develop no matter where they are in their soccer journey. If you're a recreational player, if you're a competitive player, if you're an elite player, if you're an elite player that's pushing on to hopefully push on to university opportunities, professional opportunities. We're a place that no matter where you are and what stage in your in your career and your journey through soccer, we'd want to have a place. There's a place for you, and it's not going to change. Our philosophy won't change depending on where you are in that spectrum. In regards to not our philosophy, but more so our culture. We want to try to build a culture where, regardless if you are just here to have fun and play recreationally once a week, or I am here to be, top of the pyramid. I want to try to push for Team Canada on the men's or women's side. We're going to treat you exactly the same and treat you with as much respect as possible, and to hopefully build you as a person, not just as a soccer player.
So, like, is there a geographic area that like West Ottawa, like is kind of bound into? Like, how far does the club stretch?
Well, it's a fairly big geographic area because right now you could consider basically Canada, Stittsville, Carp, all of that west end of the city type area to be West Ottawa technically territory. Although in soccer we don't really have boundaries per se. We have players from all over the city. Actually, even players that come from Kingston to come and train and play with the club. So that's our geographic area in terms of our locations of our fields and our office and stuff like that. But we're open to any and everyone.
Okay, right on. So the local pro club, Atletico Ottawa now, they've got some other clubs under this like powered by Atletico program. So kind of like a more formal sounding relationship, I guess, with those clubs. As of right now, like West Ottawa isn't one of the powered by Atletico clubs, but I did notice last year Drew Becky, where their players came by at one point, which was cool to see. So I'm just kind of curious, like, does the club have a relationship with Atletico?
Yeah, I mean, we do. I mean, I've spoken to Fernando, who's their general manager and CEO, president for for a season or so now. We have a relationship, and we're working towards building probably a stronger bond and seeing where that goes. But we definitely do have a relationship with them, and we've had some players go into their environment for training opportunities. As you know, Drew Becky has come in and helped coach a few of our youth teams as well. So there's definitely a relationship there.
So something that turned a few heads, more than a few heads in the soccer community, like across Canada, was League1 Ontario announcing that they were like restructuring the league. So turning it into like a kind of a three-tiered league with promotion and with promotion relegation by 2024. So like I know the West Ottawa at one point did have teams in both the men's and women's divisions. The club doesn't right now, but like is that something that's on the radar? And like does this restructuring affect whether or not West Ottawa wants to like re-enter the League One realm?
Yeah, it's a great question. What we actually only had the women's side. We didn't have a men's team.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
We just had the women's team for I believe it was 2 or 3 seasons, and it proved very beneficial. Don't get me wrong. Just at times it got tough because with that, you're talking about women. Some of them have jobs. They've got other things going on. So in order to travel to the Toronto area almost every second weekend, it got to be quite a bit. So it's kind of one of the reasons that we took the back seat and said, okay, let's have a look at this for a couple seasons and see how we can really structure this in an appropriate way. So I'm not saying no that we won't do it again. I think it's more about just kind of seeing the landscape and seeing what makes sense for us as a club and going from there. The experience was great, and I think the new structure of the league, I love it. I mean, it's more of a European style
really
promotion,
cool, right?
Relegation. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think it's what's been needed to keep everyone on their toes, not just a matter of, well, hey, I paid my money, I have a license and away I go. Well, now you've got to make sure that Yeah, you put a product on there, but I think it's more about developing as well. Because if you develop within, then your structure will be strong regardless. So no, I think it's fantastic, and it's something that West Ottawa would support, and we'll have to see what happens in the future for sure.
Okay, so you've gone to college, you've played pro, so I'd imagine, I'd hope that kids would see you as a pretty great resource to have around, especially if they have aspirations of their own of playing at a higher level, like going to university or even to the pro level. Are there certain questions that kids ask you a lot?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm trying to think, and I would probably say yes, but also I got to be careful how I answer them, because my time and way of doing things 20 years ago compared to now is completely different.
Okay.
Ask me to put together a YouTube highlight tape. I couldn't do that for, I couldn't even pay anyone to do it for me.
But now every kid has one now.
Every kid has one, whereas it's something I didn't have to worry about in my time, because, we didn't have that accessibility, right? Or we didn't even have that platform. So, little things like that, it was tough for me. And I was like, listen, you probably know better than I would how to structure that and how to, manipulate that landscape. But, a lot of questions I ask is like, what is it like? Not so much about the soccer aspect, but some things we take for granted is that when you go into these environments is, okay, you're doing the soccer, the training, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours a day. What about the other, 20 some odd hours? What am I doing with my time? How do I handle myself? How do I prepare myself mentally for those things, of being on my own, being away from my friends, being away from my family? So those are kind of the questions I get. And I try to give them as honest as an opinion as I can give them.
So for me, especially with a podcast that's focusing on the grassroots, there's nothing I would like more to see than to see more kids from Ottawa join the pro ranks. Now you have a great vantage point, being in the position that you are, to see the available pathways that there are now. Is there anything that you would like to see change or improve about the pathways to pro level soccer?
I think this is, first of all, probably the best it's been ever that I can think of in terms of pathways. More so on the men's side, I will say. So on the boys / men's side, definitely. I think we have to improve more so on the women's and female side of the game in terms of pathways. Right now, the pathway is really truly hopefully get a scholarship in the US still. That's probably the best pathway for a female to hopefully maybe push on there to maybe play in Europe or play NWSL. Where I'm hoping at some point we can have a CPL type league in Canada, where that professional female player does have those opportunities to stay in youth sport if they choose, as well as play in a professional environment. I think that's genius what CPL has done with collaborating with youth sport. So if we can hopefully have something like that on the female side, I think that would raise our level immensely.
Especially on the men's side, seems like that, it's the number of opportunities available to them now. That's really the difference maker. I'm just curious, do the kids talk about the CPL? Is that something that excites them, or are they kind of focused on Premier League, Europe?
You know what? I think it's hard to not hear them talk about, Premier League, especially.
Sure.
It's what we all get. You get it, especially now with the Zone or whatever app it's on.
Yeah.
You get it all the time on your phone, on your tablet, on your laptop, wherever. I think the CPL is starting to get there, but I think it's more at the older ages, as they see, okay, I can maybe go to Carleton University, or I can go to another university with a new sport. That's an avenue for hopefully CPL at some point. But I think it's maybe more of an age group gap in regards to that observation, but maybe more the 15, 16-year-old, they see that opportunity more with CPL, whereas the younger ones, they're just seeing, Salah scored a goal for Liverpool. I want to wear my Liverpool jersey.
Right on. Well, Kwame, I think that's all the questions I got for you. It's really been a pleasure to meet you. So my club days were with Goulburn, which eventually evolved and merged to become West Ottawa. So it's good to know that my former club is in solid hands. So
thank you so much. I appreciate it, and thanks again for having me on this platform. And it's been great.
That was my chat with Kwame Telemaque of West Ottawa Soccer Club. Once again, I want to thank him for joining. That was fantastic. And that will wrap things up for this episode. And hey, if you want to hear someone in particular on this podcast, let me know. We'll try and get them on. We'll try and make it happen. Whether it's a coach, player, superfan, volunteer, anything that shows Ottawa soccer that love and attention, I'm here for it. That's it for this episode, though. Thank you for listening. I love you for it. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Feel free to reach out over social media. Email thestepoverpodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. But until next time, we'll see you.